I mean, regarding the presidential aids he instituted to facilitate communication, according to him, he said that these aids, each region of the country will get one and will help to explain to the people the policies and programs of government. So it seems that the actions which have been taken by the president since he got to power have yet to be understood by the people. So what do you make of it? Do you think it is a positive action so far?
Yeah, well, it's a positive action, but I don't think Nigerians are unaware of the key policies of government. Nigerians know. Nigerians know that the fuel subsidy was removed from day one. The president came in. Nigerians also know that the Naira is floated. And these are the two key policies that have really driven the nation's economy downward in terms of trend. The measure to be put in place in the regions to further get Nigerians to understand that the workings of government is good. But the ongoing crisis and conversation around hardship and what the protesters call bad governance, those issues are well out there in the public domain. And the fact remains that fuel subsidy was removed without the basic preparations. We don't have developed transport system, what you may call urban mass transport system. We don't have that. You don't have a CNG compliant buses. You don't have most of the things that would make the fuel subsidy removal work. And that was exactly what forced government to return to fuel subsidy. Or maybe the Nigerians are unaware, but the government is perhaps paying more money in fuel subsidy than the Buhari administration. Maybe in terms of the value of the money being paid, the quantum of Naira being paid is more, but in terms of value, it may not be as valuable as the amount paid by the Buhari administration, because the country has actually been undergoing what you call, the country undergoes what you call illusion of money. You know, you have more money that has little or no value as such. You know, so, you know, the government is back on subsidy removal. Let's get this point clear. It's true that government is back on it. Then when it comes to Naira flotation, government is also trying to defend the Naira. In other words, you are, by so doing, sort of going back on a Naira flotation itself, because the basic logic behind Naira flotation is to allow the Naira to really find its level against the global currencies, the dollar, the pound, the yen, the yuan, the euro, all of them. And without export base, without sound foreign reserves, the Naira was not able to survive this in a few weeks. And the value of the Naira so degenerated to the point that Naira to dollar hit about 2,000 Naira. You know, so government is back again trying to defend the Naira. And it then means that the two policies that have actually crashed the economy are, the government is sort of back to abandoning them, but there is a bigger problem. The protesters, for example, are saying, go back to 197 Naira per liter of fuel, which the Tinubu government made May 2023. Well, the bad news is that it is no longer possible for government to return to that. It's not, I don't see how that can happen, because you don't have the export base to earn more dollars. You don't have the foreign reserves that you can actually, because our foreign reserves is hovering between 30 to 35 billion dollars. When compared to the Chinese economy, which for me is number one in the world as we speak, Chinese economy is backed by $1 trillion reserve. So you can see that the Naira is nowhere. So for whoever contemplated that the Naira can be left free to compete with the rest of the world, didn't really have any sound logic or theory backing it up, because you must have basic sources of foreign exchange before you can embark on such. Now, let me draw our attention to one thing that I believe is at the foundation of the disarticulation that the Nigerian economy is undergoing and witnessing at the moment. The crude, if you go to Bureau of Statistics, you will find that the Nigerian export is still up to 75% crude oil. And this crude, we can't even meet the export quota allocated to Nigeria by OPEC, for the simple reason that what we have today, a lot of it is already mortgaged to loans, to what you call a forward sales of crude, and other joint venture commitments with the IOCs that operate in collaboration with the NNPC in the oil sector. What this means is that Nigeria as a country may not have up to 500,000 barrels of crude every day to export. Now, if that is the reality, it means that a balance of 1 million, if you are producing and exporting 1.5 million every day, up to 1 million barrels go to these commitments I talked about. Let me give you an example. The last loan taken by Nigeria from IMF is crude backed. What that means is that whenever you sell, you use the proceeds up front to service those debts that you took as loans, and you committed yourself that you're going to use your crude proceeds to offset in terms of servicing, not even repayment. What this means is that Nigeria, I'm sorry to say, technically, Nigeria may not even be, seen now as a crude exporting country, because you don't have anything as balance at the end of the day. Because much of what should come to Nigeria was taken by the Buhari administration that took crude-backed loans, that mortgaged, sold the future oil. What I mean by future oil is the oil that will be produced in Nigeria in the future, up to perhaps beyond 5 years, already sold. So whenever you produce every day, the people that paid you in advance will have to take theirs. And the loan that you use crude to back will go into it. And at the end of the day, what you are now left with is a balance of perhaps 300,000 to 500,000 barrels a day to fall back on as your actual foreign exchange earning. That is where we are. So if this is the reality, how do you hope to go back to 197 naira per liter of fuel? It's not impossible. We can't go back there. However, I want to say that even if we can't do anything about going back seriously on a fuel subsidy, because like I told you, fuel subsidy is actually back, but we cannot, because of the illusion of money and devaluation, the Buhari administration paid less, but in value, they actually paid more if you consider the value of Naira in the current economic mix. Now, if this is where we are, I am thinking that the most important problem we have at the moment, is Naira devaluation. Something has to be done to bring the dollar below 1,000 Naira. If you do this, things will relatively stabilize, and the prices of essential goods and drugs will begin to really come down. But as long as Naira is up there, is up there against the dollar to the tune of 1,600 and something Naira to $1, there is no way anything will change. Don't forget, we are importing almost everything, especially when it comes to food items or commodities. We are importing everything, right? There is no import substitution in that sector at this moment because the farmers cannot return to farm. That is where we are. The farmers are not back in their farms because of banditry, because of herdsmen, because of terrorists in some places like Niger, Zamfara, and so on and so forth. The farmers will have to pay the bandits, the terrorists, before they can access their farms. And when they do so, you can imagine that you have to pay the terrorists, you have to pay the bandits, you have to pay even the henchmen to enter your own farm. So this has driven the farmers away from their farms. And what that means is that you have to import everything, including yam. You will be surprised that yam is being brought in from West African countries. Now, as import is going on, even the little you produce is being smuggled across the border. Why? Because the Naira flotation has actually made the Naira the weakest currency in West Africa. So if Naira is the weakest currency in West Africa against the CFA and the CEDE and so on and so forth, what that means is that the border states, farmers around there, and the businessmen around there will prefer to sell the commodities that are produced in Nigeria, the cash crops and everything, like rice, like everything, and the wheat and so on and so forth, across the border. Because when they sell in those currencies and return to Nigeria with the CEDE, with the CFA and so on and so forth and convert, they have actually made twice the amount they would have made in Nigeria. And don't forget that the transport sector is comatose. If you look at the roads, Nigerian roads are death traps. So the farmers that would have to transport from north to south is a nightmare. And by the time you add the money on transportation and everything to the cost of production, it shoots up further. This in itself is a big problem that we have to address. So that is why I insist that the most important move that must be made now by government is to bring down the cost of the dollar, peg it somewhere below 1,000 Naira, and defend it for the next 3 to 6 months before you review, even if it means you have to borrow money to do this. After all, they have been borrowing. Let them borrow for saving the economy, and that way we will have our economy back. If we don't take such critical measures, I see Nigeria on the road to Venezuela. Hello, are you there? Hello, are you there? Hello?
Okay, he seems to have a slight problem with his connection. I'm sure he'll be back in a moment, sir.
Can you hear me? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hello? Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you clearly, sir.
Yeah, when I
Yes.
finished, I didn't hear anybody come back to me.
Okay, he had a small problem with his connection, the main anchor. But I think you have made some
Yes.
very, very important points, especially
Okay.
like
Now,
Charles, when I was.
before he comes back,
Yes,
before he
sir.
comes back, I want to fill in by reviewing the protest itself. You know, the protest, I believe it was necessary. It was one way the Nigerian masses could get the government to understand the gravity of the economic situation that is confronting the country and the citizenry. Very fundamental. However, both sides, I'm not quite satisfied with the way both sides, the government, particularly the police, and the protesters themselves, went about the protest. And yes, I must admit that the protesters must have made, I believe they have made some gains. They have gotten the government to understand that things are not as they should be, that hunger is real, and there is a kind of a disparity between how a government sees the economy and how the Nigerian masses feel the economy. That has been gained already. But we lost much more. We lost over 20 lives. We lost vital public infrastructure here and there in Kano and in some other places. Even some government official houses were actually touched. I understand an honorable member of House of Reps, his house was, burnt somewhere, I think in Kebi or somewhere like that. I believe that, before the protest itself, I was of a very firm belief that there was need to plan the protest, plan it properly, coordinate it properly. And I also saw in the way of the coordination and the planning that the organizers tended to be faceless. No, you can't afford to be faceless. One of the reasons NSAS failed was because of the facelessness of the mobilizers. You shouldn't be faceless. Every movement requires a clear-cut leadership. We didn't see very clear-cut leadership or leaders we can hold onto, even for authentication of information. And that was why we saw many versions of the demands. Many demands started flying up and down because you don't know who to go to the website to visit and they pick mainly the kind of information that you will consider authentic. Now, from the flying demands, we saw hunger protests. There was an end hunger protest. There was a take back Nigeria protest. There was a tear of rage protest. There was end bad governance protest. There was end government protest. You get this kind of scatterthon of confusion. It ought not to be. It should be a very clear process where we know that this is what we are going out for. And the demands ought to be very clear, unambiguous, measurable, and all that. You don't, for example, I saw a version that was calling for restructuring of Nigeria. How do you measure that? Calling for unconditional release of Nnamdi Kanu and all that. What has that got to do with the hunger strike? So you can see that people created confusion in the whole process. Now, we also saw that the police was they were repressive. It's not what I expected. I watched the protests going on in UK as we speak, and the protesters and the police they are not having the kind of face-off we are having in Nigeria. Nigerians are saying hunger, end hunger, that is asking for bread. They are asking for bread, and the police is replying with bullets. How can that be a proper response? You know, a bullet for bread. How? And I believe that it came to this sad impasse, if not end, because there wasn't the kind of planning that we recommended aviation. I had asked them before the protest that the protesters must show up, let's know who they are, and get in touch with the security agencies since Section 39, Section 40 of the 1999 Constitution, and then Section Charter 29 of EU, African Union on Human Rights, and the Charter, I think, 32 of United Nations Human Rights. You know, these things guarantee that indeed, in a democracy, if it is properly so called, that the people have the right to protest. Yes, but how you protest is a different ballgame altogether. You cannot protest in a manner that will criminalize the entire exercise. The protesters, when they started flying a Russian flag and calling for military intervention, calling for foreign intervention, they started diverging their kind of protest into even the act of treason, you know, and criminally generally, because arson is not permitted by any law. Section 39 and Section 40 of the 1999 Constitution says that the people have the right to protest. And again, is peaceful protest possible in Nigeria? The answer is yes. We are all living witnesses. When Adams Oshiomhole was the president of the NLC, he led at least 10 protests in Nigeria, and not a single person died. They were all peaceful protests. So peaceful protest is possible if it is well planned. We also, the fuel pump price hike protest that was codenamed Take Back Nigeria by Wole Soyinka, Bakari, Tinubu, and General Buhari, and so on and so on. Look, the protest was largely, peaceful. Nobody died except one individual that died by accidental discharge. You get the point. That died by accidental discharge. That is about the only death that was recorded. So peaceful protest is possible in Nigeria. Whoever is saying that peaceful, yes.
Doctor, yes, just a minute. You mentioned about the different kind of groups and demands that were coming from the various groups. Some are of the opinion that the protest was deep-rooted in hunger, and it was nationwide. Yes. While these leaders of the various groups were in different parts of the country, and by coincidence, they happened to have almost similar dates. Some were saying 29th of the previous month, and the others 1st of August. How then can they have a united front to present their demands, since they probably even have not met each other? They are only driven by hunger and the situation of the country. What would be your suggestions? What are your thoughts?
Well, you see, let me tell you, in this era of communication, technology, and everything, it's possible to ring up Nigerians that are living all over the world on a single platform. So if indeed their agenda, the agenda were the same and everything, they could have easily met, even on a simple WhatsApp platform, on Instagram, so many places they could have met, and they agree, harmonize their demands, and make themselves available to the IGP or police, make themselves available to the DSS, make themselves available to the police commissioners of states, so that they will agree on the route that will take off from this point and end up at this point where the final address will be taken, and After that, we will disperse at this point in time. This was not done. That's my point. This was not done. And the implication of that was that people were protesting wherever they may, and people, hoodlums, now hijacked the process and started looting. And when you start looting, burning down police stations and so on and so forth, what do you expect the police to do? The police started responding in the manner they did. I am not trying to hold brief them, but I am saying that the organizers actually played into their hands, and it was avoidable. And I recall that the IGP was at a point demanding that he wants to see these people. Let them come and let them agree on stuff. That was not done. You don't organize national protest at this level of this magnitude without clear leadership, without clear agenda. That's the point I'm making. One of the purported leaders was Showore. Showore is not even in Nigeria. He was doing his own on social media from Washington in the US. It's not right. You need to be here and lead from the front. The people, Tinubu, for example, has been protesting all his life, and he's not protesting from the social media. You will see him addressing the people. And we just have to get this thing right next time, because the lives that were lost were clearly avoidable. We shouldn't, every Nigerian that dies diminishes me, because we are fellow citizens, and this ought not to be. So that's why I drew our attention to the fact that peaceful protests, more than 10 peaceful protests, have held in this democratic dispensation, and nobody died. So how come this one is different? It's because of the approach, because there was no plan. Be that as it may, I think government got the message. And the organizers of the protest, if they hope to stage a second version of it, need to show their face. If they are afraid of being arrested and detained, they haven't started. They are not starters. As student union leaders, we were in and out of police detention. They should be ready to face it. Revolution is not for rookies. It's not and disappear from the scene and allow Nigerian children. Did you see the videos of some of the protests in places like Borno and so on and so forth? The children that came out were as young as 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. What that means is that these categories of Nigerians are not even aware of why the protest is going on. They don't even know. What does a 10-year-old child know? So these are some of the issues. And even if sections of the country have different sets of demands, then let it be so tagged. Now look, we in this state, this is what we want. So that we will know we will know what is coming from where. Because I don't think that flying of a Russian flag and calling for military intervention and for foreign forces intervention is a part of what the protesters from the Navy Southwest will be saying. Even Southeast did not even get involved at all. South didn't get involved except in a River State. If you discount River State, the entire South didn't, yes, they did, but again, we saw the marvelous work done there by the police commissioner of Edo State. Sorry, I can't remember his name now. But he joined the protesters. He addressed the protesters. He held them in the usual protest songs and things like that. And it was peaceful. Lagos took the same pattern, and Lagos was generally pretty peaceful. In Abuja, we started off peacefully also, but confining the protesters to National Stadium by court order proved abortive, and because the security agencies didn't want Abuja to be overrun, they started replying with all sorts. They pushed from Maraba, Nasarawa State, through Nyanyam to come into Abuja. and I understand 1 or 2 persons died in that process. We saw canisters of tear gas everywhere, and we saw that the security operatives in Abuja did not want protests, particularly in the city center. I fought them on that. You see, if we had planned this protest very well, and they agreed that the protest would start from, the protest would now start from, say, Lugbe and terminate in Eagle Square, the police will guide the whole process. And whoever is protesting any other place other than on this route that is mapped out will have himself to blame. This wasn't done. And if that was done, let me tell you one major thing that could have happened. If they had, in an orderly manner, peacefully moved from, say, Lugbe or from Kubwa or from wherever, from Nyanyan to Eagle Square, I bet you the Tinubu I know would have come to address the people. But how do you expect the president to come and address the protesters when you don't even know who is protesting? So these are issues. Tinubu is bold, courageous enough. He would have come out if, the whole thing was peaceful and orderly and clear demands that are patriotic and based on genuine requests for rejigging and tweaking of policies, like I talked about Naira flotation. Tinubu should be able to say, look, we can move the Naira to so and so because of so and so reasons. This is the kind of conversation that I had expected, that we can no longer go
exactly.
back.
Yes.
But this was
yes,
not
Doctor,
done.
exactly.
This was not done because there was no harmonization of demands. There was no face put to the protest, to the point that one of the major leaders of the protest, Showore, was living in the US. So if Showore is in US, is it Tinubu that you expect to be in Eagle Square? So let's call things by their proper names. Both sides didn't agree on anything. They didn't. In fact, if I were IGP or police, when the protesters refused to come out and let us agree on the process, I will go to court and get an order stopping the entire protest. Not just getting yes, you can, because there is nothing that says that there's no constitutional or legal provision that says that Nigerians who are protesting, should be anonymous. Why should you be faceless? We should know who you are if your intentions are genuine. We should know who you are.
Yes.
Nigerians should know who you are. We should know who to relate to. We must know. So now that this
Dr. Law.
Yes.
Yes, Dr. Law. You're right. Speaking about the protest so far and the response of Mr. President, from data we got right from the first and second day of the protests, about 17 states had violent cases, about 10 states, including Taraba, Delta, Ebonyi, Edo, Benue, Nasarawa, at peaceful protests. Unfortunately, there are 175 injuries and 21 lives lost. Now, this is a great loss to Nigeria. Like you mentioned earlier, asking for bread and getting bullets. Has the president addressed the protests on it enough to deter it from happening again? What is your take on the president's response to the protests so far, sir?
Well, you see, because the demands are vague and disarticulated, even getting the president to address them is also a problem, because you don't have a harmonized version of the demands being put out there by the various groups that joined the protest. However, what I want to take away is end hunger, and 2, end bad governance, right? Now, addressing hunger in Nigeria, we have to address the two measures, economic policies I have mentioned already, Nigerian Naira flotation and fuel subsidy removal without plans, right? Subsidy removed without plans, like CNG buses, like where you call conversion centers, people who want to change their vehicles to CNG compressors and so on and so forth. In Abuja here, I don't know where that is done, not aware if any exists. And if it exists, if it is working, these are the kind of things that ought to have been put in place before the removal of the subsidy. Government didn't do that. And that was why when the backlash now forced government to start doing subsidy again. The evidence that government is doing subsidy is there. Why do I say so? The landing cost as of last week was about 1,200 naira. But fuel is still sold officially below 700 naira. Who is paying the difference? Government. That's a fact. That is subsidy. Subsidy is taking off part of the actual cost. There is no other definition of subsidy. So no matter what government calls what they are doing, intervention or palliative or whatever, it is subsidy removal or return of subsidy. But meanwhile, before you went that route, you have already crashed the economy. That is why I said that since government can no longer realistically subsidize fuel to the point that they can now sell once again at 197 naira per liter of fuel that they met May 29, 2023. There is something they can do that can force fuel pump price to come down a bit, maybe to something like 500 naira a liter, perhaps, even 400 naira a liter. And that is just the only window left. That window is to peg the dollar. Peg the dollar at something below 1,000 naira, and things will come down. Not drastically, but manageably and tolerably. Things will come down. Then you deal with the issue of insecurity. You may have to concentrate on maybe 10 states, and deal with the issue of the insecurity that has stopped farmers from going to farm. If you know the 10 major states that the country relies on for food supply, move everything you have in terms of security and clear all the bandits and even headsmen and terrorists away from those states, and defend those states and allow the farmers to go to farm. Within 1 year, you'll be surprised what will happen. And there was something Professor Chukwuma Soludo also did 2-3 days ago. He launched a campaign he called Farm to Feed campaign. The federal government should be able to insist on all of us returning to farm. Everybody, including all of you in that studio, you return to farm. Farm something in a sack. Find something, anything, vegetable. If you farm vegetable, pepper, all those things, you will not have to buy such in the market. This is the kind of campaign that the federal government ought to be doing at the moment. We also need to see the federal government forgetting about all these palliatives. You see, you sent 20 trailers of rice to a state. What is that? I don't understand. How many is it? Every person 1 grain? Because suddenly 1 cup cannot go around. It's not possible. Do you understand that? So what should government be doing? Government should remove what you call duties on imports of specific food items and commodities. Remove completely. Since you are not producing, you are not even farming at the moment. So during harvest, you don't even have any hope of harvesting anything. And before we fix the security component, we should allow food to come into the country. Some people have argued that it will kill agriculture in Nigeria. That argument is nonsense, as far as I am concerned. Pardon my language. It is nonsense, but you are not producing. And we are talking about, are you killing what is not there? The agriculture in Nigeria is practically dead because of insecurity. So we are saying in the interim, in the next 12 months, what do we do? That's the issue here. You bring in food so the Nigerians can feed and be alive before anything else. There is no food in the market. I've had another argument that the problem is what you call a non-availability or a non-affordability. That argument is also warped. It's not a matter of unaffordability. It's not true. If you flood the market with rice, for example, people will be forced to revise their high prices. They will sell to remain in the competition. So the basic economic theory of the battle, the battle between demand and supply is of a factual end that as long as you are strong on supply, the demand, the cost for demand will commensurately come down. So what is going on in Nigeria is unavailability. I'm not denying that we do not have cartels that are trying to hoard, that are even trying to export to other countries and make more money, since the dollar to naira has become outrageously weighed against the naira. Again, another proof of my argument that you need to peg the naira to dollar below 1,000 naira. Because when you do that, there will be no longer any incentive to export our fuel across the borders, to export our food across the borders, because you will be selling less. And if you do this, what we produce will remain in Nigeria, what we import will remain in Nigeria, and saturate our markets and force prices down so that Nigerians will eat. Take, for instance, again, the issue of drugs and pharmaceuticals. Yes, if you go to drugs and pharmaceuticals, there are drugs we bought for 2,500 naira by March last year, 2023, that go for over 25,000, 30,000 naira now. And these are prescription drugs. These are drugs. There are Nigerians that live on prescription drugs. There are those who are hypertensive, those who are diabetic, those who have cancer, those who have terminal diseases, those who have diseases they are managing because they can be cured. And they rely on drugs. These drugs are no longer affordable. What do this category of Nigerians do? They resort to faith. They go to churches, ask pastor to pray the ailments away. And you and I know the consequence. So you can say that the government has so much to do to address the president didn't address these specifics. So yes, he appealed for calm and order, but there are specific measures. Then, as it has to do with the end bad governance, what do I understand by bad governance? I want to believe that the protesters are saying that Nigeria is poor, but government officials are living large. So I had expected the president to come hard on the cost of governance. Do something about the allowances of political office holders. It's not the salary. The salary is not where the problem is. If a senator is earning 28 million every month, his salary is probably 1 million. So the problem, if the senator says, okay, I give up my salary of 1 million, what happens to the 27 million that he has in his pocket? So there needed to have been some very fundamental concessions made by government in this direction, getting the people to see that, yes, things are hard, times are hard, both the citizens and the government must make concessions. But here, Nigerians are forced to tighten their belt, make more concessions, whereas government officials are living large. And Nigerians are now interpreting this, that they are being taxed to fund the extravagance and opulent living of those in government. So these are the kind of responses I expected. Yes.
Yes, Doctor. Yeah, just before we wrap up, and I believe that we have a few people within the platform. maybe they may ask one or two questions before we wrap up. As they prepare for that, you have given some suggestions that government could address in the interim. And also from your astute analysis of the entire protest process, there has been some form of disorganization and lack of cohesion. Going by this, is it safe probably to say that, yes, the protests are taking place and government has not actually addressed the issues from the speeches so far? That means the problem on ground still persists. What is your forecast for Nigeria within the next 6 months to 1 year? Do you foresee another protest?
Well, I will be surprised if there are no further protests. There will be, because the government is not addressing what the people raised. So the protests will continue in other forms, perhaps. My prayer is that let them get better organized and avoid the destruction and death. It's possible. That's why I drew our attention to the Oshomole protests, Take Back Nigeria protests, Occupy Nigeria protests. All these protests went without destruction and death. So their own must go without protection and death. And the issue of regime change, that some of them were calling for, the issue of flying foreign flags or inviting Russia to intervene, these things, will always send very wrong signal to the government. If you were Tinubu, you get worried that you don't know where these things are coming from. Are you really looking for regime change, or are you looking to end hunger? That's the issue here. So there will be more protests in many forms. I'll be surprised if there will be none in the next 1 year. However, it is possible to avert the protest by addressing some of these things that I raised. If, for example, the government says, look, we need to peg the naira, flotation is not working, and you peg it even at 1,000 naira, there's no reason things will not come down. Because a basket of tomato that was going for about 15, 16, 17,000 naira, as recently as March this year, is now going for between 60, 90,000 naira. In fact, a few weeks ago, it went up as high as 120,000 naira basket of tomato. You can imagine that. So if you are able to deal, insist, because I believe that there are reasons why the president doesn't want to admit that there is need to do away with subsidy removal and naira flotation. You see, I understand all that. Some of the loans they have taken from IMF, from World Bank, have some of these preconditions attached to them. But you can't stick to these conditions at the expense of the survival of your own country. If the conditions are not working, you tell them it's not working and you can't continue. That's my advice to the president. It's my advice to the president. Even if you don't totally subsidize fuel, you can do that partially, but peg the dollar below 1,000 naira. Peg it. Borrow money to defend that. I'm very serious. You may not get more loans from IMF and World Bank, but there are some big countries that can understand the plight of Nigeria. Under bilateral relations, you can get money from places like China as a country under better conditions. I'm not sure a place like China will be insisting that Nigeria must float their currency, that they must remove fuel subsidy. You cannot remove subsidy from the energy mix and expect to survive. The energy mix, everything we do in Nigeria is dependent on fuel. Everything. You don't have to own a car to pay for fuel, because each time you enter Okada, Keke, bus from one point to another, you are actually paying for fuel. That's why they are charging you. It's not a free ride. So we are all involved in the energy mix. We are all involved in the energy mix, all of us. So that is why countries are very careful about the energy mix. You can imagine we had refineries. We had refineries that are not working. Then we had crude. Today we have a Dangote refinery that is working. We don't have crude. What kind of country is that? Do you see the problem? And Dangote refinery has a total installed capacity of a 400, of a 650,000 barrels of crude per day, which when refined will give you about 49 million liters of fuel. Nigeria doesn't need more than 20 to 25 liters of fuel a day, which means that Dangote alone can supply 100% Nigerian internal need. And yet, we don't have crude to give Dangote. Is that not tragic? You don't have crude. Why don't you have crude? You don't have crude because much of our crude was already mortgaged by the Buhari administration, sold, forward sales of crude oil, and then crude-backed loans also taken. And don't forget, NNPC has just completed an arrangement to take another $2 billion crude-backed loan. When you say crude-backed loan, it means that you will pay for the loan and service it through the crude you will produce in future. That is where Nigeria is at the moment. That is why Dangote is now buying crude from the United States of America, Angola, and other places. He's not buying from outside Nigeria. Don't forget that he's not going to do any magic and the crude will leave US and land in Obajana. No, he has to pay for transportation to bring the crude from the US back to Nigeria that has crude, but cannot sell to Dangote. Sometimes you wonder the kind of people you call your leaders. Now, when the implication of this, even from elementary economics, is that if Dangote has to bring in crude from the US and pay for the transportation, do you think he will bear the cost of the transportation? He will not. He will pass it off to you and I. What that means is that Dangote fuel will not bring down the price of fuel in Nigeria. And not because Dangote wouldn't want to bring down the cost of crude in Nigeria, but because Dangote cannot be supplied by NNPC. We need to understand the basics. And that is why I said that Tinubu missed a very big opportunity. And the organizers also missed very big opportunity. Because if what I am saying now, Tinubu came out to Ego Square to tell Nigerian masses that this is what has happened, do you think that the protests will not be called off that same day so that we know the enemies we have and face them? But we missed the opportunity. Nigerian masses are now still continually fed on lies and propaganda. They now come out to tell you that Dangote diesel has not met the threshold of what we call quality control, sulfur content, and all that. Is that for public consumption?
Yes.
Can't NNPC, if they are not bent on demarcating a Dangote, go and they fix the agency, the NNPC agency that is talking about this sulfur. Do you know they don't have a standard lab to even confirm what they are claiming? Do you understand?
On that very strange note, yes, doctor.
Yeah, I just tired, to be honest.
That is on that note, so we should be wrapping up at this point. And it's been nice having you. So you have gone through a lot of this, and your contributions, of course, I'm sure. Hello, doctor. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. If you can hear me. You went off
Okay,
at
yes,
the
I
point.
can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. The network has been a bit funny. So for your closing.
My closing remarks, if you can hear me, is all hope is not lost. We have to encourage the president to take very important steps and measures that can address hunger in the land. Some of the measures I have mentioned here, there are other measures as well. And where any policy is not yielding the desired result, the president should not be too fixated to reverse himself where necessary. Only dead men don't change their opinion.
Hello, doctor.
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Wow, thank you. Thank you so very much. The issue of Nigeria, yes, sir. The issue of Nigeria and the situation we're in is not one that we could conclude in a single program. But I trust that if we invite you next time, you would be able to come so we could continue the discussion because it's an ongoing one.
The pleasure is mine.
Thank you very much for making time. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been on Diaspora Digital Media, and today our guest has been Dr. Law Mefo, a veteran journalist and civil activist on his own rights. And the topic today has been popular demonstration participation, boycott, and achievements of the protest. Thank you very much for staying tuned to Diaspora Digital Media. Catch us tomorrow for another edition of the program. You have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palm. You've been so helpful. I'm hearing that the light went off at the studio in Noka, so yeah, an issue.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Okay, no wonder.
That, they're still trying to sort it out, right? I asked them, they said they've not installed installed solar there. Wow.
Oh, that's a place that should need solar.
Yes,
or at least a standby gen.
About installing a mini grid there, but I don't know what was really delaying it. The one here is still here. That's the one that is even helping me. That's making me to be online almost 24/7. Well,
oh dear.
I'll do it soon. I'm sure the generator. Okay, I'll just post it in. Okay, let me just. Okay.